If you're anything like me, then writing a book is a lifelong dream of yours. And if you really are anything like me, then you might have found yourself bouncing back ideas, struggling with finding time to write, or even really understanding what it takes to write a book. So, this week, I wanted to dive a little bit more about my own journey, tips of how you can start writing a book in 2026, and even tools you might want to use to get that project out in the open. Let's go. Hello there. Welcome back to the channel. If you don't know me, my name is Maki. Here with me is the lovely Michael Scott. He's currently having a nap on my ottoman in the living room. And today we have a very exciting topic to talk about together. So, if you've been following this channel, even if for the last video or so, you might know that I'm writing my first novel. And the thing is, I actually had this idea for a very, very, very long time. I can't tell you exactly when I started to dream about writing a book, but I know it was from a very early age. But the thing is, life happened and things got in the way. I started working, I went to college, I worked a lot growing up. I was kind of a workaholic for a little while there. And writing, even though I know in my heart that it's always been my vocation and it probably will continue to be my vocation, it was also something that I left to decide in order to, work and start a career and start living on my own and just doing all the grown up things that one is supposed to do, especially when you don't have that much of a support system that allows you to play around with different ideas of what you want to do and have creative hobbies and just, have the freedom to do things as you feel like and not just because you have to. So, yeah, even though writing a book has always been a dream of mine, I felt like I let that dream sit by itself in a dark corner of my mind for a very long time. And I kind of like shifted myself and my career to content creation so that I could have writing as part of my life on a daily basis, but not exactly the way that I wished for the most. You know what I mean? So I created content for a very, very long time. I did blogs, I did YouTube for some point there in the past. I did a lot of Instagram, a lot of social media until June 2025. To put it in very easy to understand terms, I burned out. This year, I finally reached my limit. I was creating a lot of content for social. I was writing newsletters. I was trying all these different things and different angles and different formats. I had an idea in my head of what I wanted to achieve, what I wanted to build, but doing that on top of my 9 to 5, on top of a lot of stuff that was happening on the sidelines and asking for my attention, I just reached a point where I was thinking, what is the point of all of this? You know, why is this so hard for me? Why can't I do the things that I really love and achieve the goals and the professional realization that I want? Why is that so hard for me? I just couldn't understand. So I kind of decided to go with a very sharp break. And in June 2025, I quit social media, I quit content creation, I quit everything that was not the extreme necessary for me at that point, and that included taking time to care for my mental health, for my apartment, for my job, for things that were really essential for my survival so that I could kind of like reroute and find out who I was without trying to do things as hard as I was trying. And the reason why I'm telling you all this is because this is important, because I feel like writing a book is more than just saying, I want to write a book. At least for me, it is. It's just like fulfilling a calling that I hear and that I feel in my heart for so long. And again, I felt like I just couldn't quite grasp it and start doing it because I had all these other ideas and imaginations and expectations of what life as a writer should be, and the possibilities that I had, like to make a living as someone who writes and, you know, wants to have that romanticized idea of living as a writer in the big city. I blame 90s sitcoms for this, but anyway, I digress. So yeah, I went for a clean cut. I dropped everything. I kept only the essentials, and as per my therapist's suggestion, I decided to go for a very, creative, very low stakes, low expectations creative project that would help me feel the time that I used to use with content creation while I was, trying to heal and understand who I was and all that comes with it. So I went for a very common path. I did The Artist's Way. This is a book by Julia Cameron. It's very, very famous in the social media medium and all that. And it's basically a 12-week course on creativity that will help you kind of like find your creative spark again. So I decided to do that. And I also enjoyed the summer as kind of like my experimental phase for this project. So throughout the whole summer, I was offline, I was off social, I wasn't creating content in any way or form possible. I was just really trying to do my best to find myself, find my ground again, find my confidence, I think, to be creative in a way that was not asking for validation constantly. Because that's the thing. The one thing that I realized was that most of the things that I was doing, the content creation, the blogs, the YouTubes, the newsletters, the Instagram posts, the TikTok posts, trying to make it as a content creator was really just me trying to fit in and trying to validate my existence through building an audience online. And I feel like that was very obvious for the audience, maybe not in a, in your face way, but, subconsciously, I think that was obvious. And I kept falling short of what I needed or what I thought I needed in terms of validation and being accepted and being part of the group and, succeeding as other people that I saw online succeeded. So that was very hurtful. Having that realization really hurt, and it hurt for a while until it didn't anymore. And I felt like doing the artist way and going on my artist dates and writing my morning pages and doing the exercise, everything kind of like started giving me a path to follow that was very natural and just showed me in a very practical way that writing and creating content, and most of all, sharing my experiences with the world is part of who I am. This is me. There's something that I love about these conversations that we can start and about sharing things and finding out new things and learning and you know, understanding it better. And I always feel like I learn better when I explain things to others as well. So, this for me is very important. This creative flow is very important, but also writing is something that is very like ingrained in my core. It's something that is me, 100% me. I cannot exist without writing. And it's not something that gives me life, but it certainly makes it way more bearable and happy and fulfilled for me. So, this process as a whole helped me understand that I needed writing just as much as writing needed me. And I needed to create and to share just as much as I need to consume to some extent, right? Because we don't want to go overboard with the consuming of content. But I understood that all of this was part of me. And it was like something changed in my mind and the ideas just started flowing and flowing and flowing. And then I turned to a friend and I told her about this idea I had for this book that, I was playing with for a very long time. I think I had this idea for like over a year or something like that. Like sometimes it crossed my mind and then I let it go, and then it came back and then I let it go again. And then I just shared with her one day. I shared this idea that I had. I think we were at Costco. We were like shopping at Costco or something like that. And I just very casually said, "Hey, you know what? I had this idea for a story, and the idea goes like this, and this." And she immediately went like, "Oh my God, you have to write this. You have to write this. Go write it. Go write it down now. Go do it." And she just kept motivating me to start writing the story. And I think it was the next day or the day after that, I just opened a Google Docs and I started drafting it. I put down some of the elements that I already had in my mind. It was the very first scene of the story, like the opening scene of the story. And then from then on, it is what it is. I'm 50,000 words into this manuscript. And I feel like to reach this point, I had to go through everything else that I just told you, which is why it was important for me to share my journey in this part of the video, so that you understood that writing a book is hard work. It demands time, it demands attention. You go back and forth, you struggle with yourself, you struggle with your writing, you find, you know, obstacles more often than not, and you have to research and you have to go back and you have to plan and then you have to plan again, or you don't plan at all, and you find yourself stuck at a crossroads and you don't know which side to go, which way to go, and you have to go back and recalculate. So it takes time and energy. And I feel like it really takes motivation to write a book that you're proud of. Not that it's perfect, but that you're proud of. So I think that for this section, I would summarize this in three main points. The first one is go offline, allow yourself to think outside of this a little bit, outside of the internet. Go outside, go live your life, go do stuff, and let your mind wander for a little bit to see if you have ideas that will inspire any type of spark in you that you say, well, yeah, I want to write that. Number two is, if possible, share your ideas with someone you really trust and someone that you know will motivate you and will allow you to freely express yourself and bounce back ideas so that you feel confident that you have something worthwhile. And thirdly, or last but not least, take a break. Taking a break was key for me to start writing this book because otherwise I wouldn't been able to. I was just so tired and so burned out and so, exhausted from living life, and everything that it concerns, that I just I wouldn't be able to have the energy or the passion to start writing the story if not for that summer that I took off content creation and social and everything else. So, of course, you don't have to go to that extreme. You don't have to do as I did, but if you can, make sure to rest, to take breaks, to allow yourself to just be for a little while so that you have the energy and the certainty, I think, that this is what you really want to do and you're willing to pursue it until the end. Because it's not only the end product that's important here, but also enjoying the process. And you need to find ways to enjoy the process. Otherwise, I feel like it will be unbearable. Okay, so with all that said, I think it's time we move on to maybe the most important part of the video, or at least the one that I know people will ask me about it the most, and that I've seen people asking about the most to other creators on YouTube, on Instagram, on different platforms, which is, what tools should you use to write your book? Now, I have to say, I might have a little bit of a hot take on this because I will not tell you to use an overcomplicated Notion template to outline your story, to plot each and every one of your chapters. I won't tell you to create a Trello board. I won't tell you to, create a wall with everything. that you want to put on your book, and to buy all this post-it notes and pens and pencils and books and ebooks and courses or whatever else other people might tell you to do in order to write a book. On the contrary, my philosophy is to keep things as simple as possible. And what I mean by that is that as a writer, especially as a beginner in the writing process, your goal is to protect your writing as much as you possibly can, because it's very easy to let complicated tools and studying about the craft and doing whatever else you think you need to do before writing is more important than the act of writing itself. And that's actually not true. So, my take on this is don't let complicated tools take time away from your writing. Whatever you do, protect your writing as much as you can. And the way that I've been doing this is by going simple in terms of organizing the way that I write and how I move on and evolve in the craft. So for me, what I'm using now and what I'll probably keep on using until the end of this draft is a Google Docs, a notebook, and a pen. That's all. I'm not using a Notion template. I'm not, creating mood boards and different folders in my computer with things for each and every one of my characters. I'm trying to keep things as simple as I can because I know that for me specifically, letting these things, the planning part of the process, take over the writing and my time and my energy is so easy. So I'm trying to bypass that by going as simple as I can to make sure that I don't escape the most important part of the process, which is writing, right? So this is what I'm doing. I have a Google Docs with all my ideas, all my scenes, everything drafted. I have my notebook, which I use to, journal ideas, or maybe if I want to study a character a little bit more, then I write it down here. I mentioned in my last video that I'm also creating like a master document for everything related to characters. And I am doing that and it is helping. But again, this is something that I started after I was already way into the drafting part. Because I felt the need to understand my characters better. So I did that with my main character, Andy, and now I'm doing it with my male main character. His name is Cal, because it really helps me. But as always, I'm starting in my notebook. I'm starting with pen and paper because that's what works best for me. And then I move on to another Google Docs that I have that I'm creating just as a master sheet for everything else. I also mentioned in my last video that I'm creating a playlist for my book, and that really helped because it's allowing me to understand the vibe of the book better and also to find content that is relatable to my characters actually makes me feel closer to them, right? But again, this is not a prerequisite or the mood boards on Pinterest. I'm also trying to create one, but this is just more like a side note of my process than a mandatory part of it. You know what I mean? So, what I'm trying to say with all of this is please, please, please don't let people tell you that you need this complicated process and steps in order to start writing up your book. Of course, if you feel like you need to plan a little bit, if you need a little guidance with your story, you can always journal about it. You can create a Notion page on that story. For me, I journaled a lot. I did like 3 or 4 journey entries about my book, about the story, general ideas of where I wanted it to go, major turning points that I wanted to cover, but everything all in generalities. I wasn't specific about anything because I was really trying to not let myself be caught on the planning Ferris wheel and just forget about the most important part of this, which was writing. So this is what I've been doing. This is what I've been using. And I urge you to try this as well if you feel like you might be the type of person that, just like me, might get caught up in all the do's and don'ts of writing a book and actually spending your time and even your money sometimes investing in these things that, yes, they might be helpful for a while, but on the long run, what they're doing is they are taking away time from your craft. So protect your craft at all costs, and make sure that if you do need a system, that it is simple, easy for you to use, and that it will not allow you to, spend more time that is necessary in order for you to draft whatever it is you need to draft, pinpoint whatever you need to know to understand about the story, so that then you can, use most of your energy into writing. Another thing I wanted to cover here, and I'm a little unsure if this actually qualifies as a tool, but anyway, I'm treating it as a tool, so it is what it is. But taking walks is very helpful for me in terms of helping me decompress after work so that I can relax and actually move my body a little in order to, kind of regain a little bit of energy before I come back home and then either start writing again or doing work or even just relaxing. But for me, in the process of writing a book, taking walks has been so important because I'm not one to actually choose a topic and then let myself think on that topic while I walk again and again, because I feel like walking in the streets, even if I'm with my dog, there's a lot of stimuli going on, and it can be a little bit hard for me to keep focused on the thing that I want to solve or the scene that I want to write or anything like that, instead of just allowing my mind to rest and pay attention to what it wants to pay attention to and wander a little bit. It's more relaxing for me to do this just like that, just letting my mind do whatever it wants to do, so that when I'm back, it's easier to focus, easier to write, and I actually feel like I have a little bit more energy um, to think creatively and map scenes that I want to write, or think a little bit better on my characters and move forward with my draft. So, even though walking is not exactly a tool that you can grasp with your hands, it's not something that you do related to your story, it's been very important in order to help me maintain my energy levels and the mindset that I need to write during specific times where I would, prefer to be resting or just watching TV or doing something that would allow me to turn off for the day, but I actually need to write a little bit more, or, to decompress after meetings that I have, or anything else that is actually occupying my mind and blocking my writing flow, my creative flow, and really just turning out to be an obstacle to the process and to keep feeding this project that I love so much. So, if I had to summarize this section of the video, I would say that the tools you need to start writing your book in 2026 are actually pretty simple. All you need is a Google Docs or a Word doc, or whatever platform you choose to use for writing. You need a notebook and a pen, and you need to take walks. Those would be my choices for any aspiring writer. And of course, you can look for whatever works for you the best. Just because these things work for me don't mean they'll do the same for you. You might feel like that you actually need a little bit more structure in order to start writing, or pen and paper don't work for you as well. You need to do something digital, and there are many ways that you can do that. So my advice for that would only to look for simplicity. Don't make things complicated. Don't let the tools take time away from your writing or occupy your thoughts more than they have to. Because James Clear said this in his book Atomic Habits, but planning is not actually action. I know we think it is, when we plan everything and we do like this amazing map of everything that we want to do and every single task and what we're going to use and how, and then we create a schedule and everything like that. And it is helpful. And most of the time, a little bit of planning is necessary to make us, to motivate us to move forward. But planning is actually procrastination in disguise. You're really just telling yourself that you're doing something related to your project when in fact you're not. So don't let yourself be caught up in the planning and forget the most important part of the process, which is writing and focusing on your writing and just getting that first draft done so that you can move on to the next phase. And maybe that next phase will ask for more planning, for different tools, for more research, for, outlining chapters and rethinking everything. But right now, I really don't think that's extremely necessary. And I feel like it's something that take away time and energy. So leave the planning for later. Do minimal planning, choose your tools wisely, make it simple, and start writing. Okay, so we talked about motivation, we talked about the tools, and now the last thing there is to say about this is your plan. How are you going to write your book? And I feel like my advice for you is this: if you feel like you have an idea, let it sit in your head for a little while, play with it around in your head, fantasize about it a little bit, think about where this idea could go. If you enjoy it enough to spend some time with it, if you feel like there's something there that is worth telling, if there's a story there that, you know, there's some sort of lesson you want to teach, or if there's maybe a type of romance that you want to explore, or if something for you, if you just really want to see the story blooms and see where your creativity can take you with it, kind of like a tool for you to develop yourself as a creative. But either way, just let it sit in your head for a little while, play with it a little bit, maybe journal about it a little bit, and then when you feel like you're ready, or when you feel like you've played with it around enough that you feel like you have a grasp on it, a very good grasp on it, then sit down on your computer, open a Google Docs, and just start writing whatever comes to your mind. This is what I did. For me, however, it started with the initial scene of the story, so that was a plus. But you can really start from whichever point comes to your head, but just sit down and write for a little bit. And then assess how that feels, like sit with yourself afterwards and ask yourself, was this fun? Did I enjoy this? Am I excited to see more, to write more? And then just let yourself go from there. I feel like there's no right or wrong when it comes to writing a book. There's no one process fits all, or one correct process that if you follow, it will be perfect and everything will come out amazing and your book will be sold in auction for six figures, or anything like that. I feel like it's a much more natural and enjoyable process. And I feel like the enjoying part of things is very important because, as I said, you're going to stay with the story for a little while. It's been 5 months for me. I know people who stayed with the story for years. They, researched and then they go back and then they write a second draft and a third draft, sometimes a sixth draft. It takes a very long time to get a book ready for publishing. You're not going to do it on your first time. So, really let yourself understand if this is something you are enjoying, and if it's something you like. And if it is, what you can do is trying to find small pockets of time in your schedule where you can fit a little bit of writing. Now, as I said, I have a 9 to 5, so I do this a lot. Sometimes I write in the mornings, like between a meeting and another. Sometimes I write right after I start my day and I have a little bit of time, half an hour, 25 minutes, that I can squeeze a little bit of writing in there. So before I start my tasks, or maybe I'll write in the evenings. Sometimes I'll write in the weekends. I'll just find small pockets of time. And, 10 minutes is better than no minutes at all. So if 10 minutes is everything you have to write a few lines, to, put down a few dialogues, or even to develop a little bit of a scene, it's better than nothing. So do that, and don't don't work yourself too hard about having the perfect schedule so that you can write your book in a month, or you can have a full draft by the end of the year. just do what you can as possible as you can. Of course, if you have time to write more in your day and you feel like this is something you will enjoy doing, then go ahead and do that. If you feel like you need to plot a little bit, do it in more general terms. Avoid falling into the rabbit hole of planning and over plotting and doing things that in the end will take time away from writing. Do it as a general idea. That's what I did anyway. I started writing it, and then I went back to my journal so that I could write a little bit about the main points I wanted the story to cover, like how I wanted the story to end, just so that I have like a vague idea of my destination with the story. But I didn't overplan because I was really trying to bypass my own perfectionism, my own ideas of how this process should go as fast as it can. Because in truth, there is no right or wrong when it comes to writing a book. So, yeah, if you need to research, stop, go research. If you need to understand characters, stop, go understand your characters a little bit more. Just try to keep moving forward as a way to allow yourself to evolve and get yourself more, you know, in depth with your own story. I feel like for me, that's what's been working. Um, every time I go back to writing, I'm a little bit more involved with these characters, a little bit more in love with them. I understand them a little bit more. And even though I know that I'll have to rewrite a lot of stuff from this first draft, when I go to my second draft, I feel like it will be easier, than starting from scratch. I feel like the idea here is to get started, get moving, get writing, have something to work on, and then you'll figure it out as you go? So, to end this video on a happy note, I hope these ideas helped you understand a little how you can write a book in 2026. I feel like writing a book has been so transformative for me. It's been such an adventure, really. I feel more creative than I've ever been. I feel motivated, even though I found a lot of bumps in the way so far, which is natural, I believe. I still feel that drive to keep writing because I really want to see how these characters will get together in my story and how they'll learn the lessons that I want them to learn and how they'll find each other in the middle so that they can evolve together as the story move forward as well. So I'm very excited. I'm very interested in my own story. I keep thinking about it now. I have my playlist that I'm listening to constantly, and it's really helping me getting the minds of my characters a little bit more. I keep seeing videos that remind me of them, reading texts or books, or I see some sort of description in a book that I'm reading that reminds me of my story and how maybe I can try that um, writing style for this scene and that scene. So it's been really transformative, but most of all, it's been really fun to write a book for me. And I hope you enjoy the process as much as I'm enjoying it next year when you try to read your book. If you have any invaluable tips for writing books for first time writers such as myself, or others that might be watching this video, please leave them in the comments below. I'll be happy to read and to start the conversation with you so we can all write our books together. And maybe, who knows, we might have full manuscripts by the end of 2026. If you want to see more videos from me, remember to subscribe to the channel and also to subscribe to my newsletter. The link is in the description. It's making a comeback at the very beginning of 2026. I'm very excited about it as well. So we'll see more of each other and we'll have more things to talk about and be closer together. I'll see you on the next video. Bye.